Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. My name is Mars, and today we're going to be talking about who you should be using your unit of choice tickets on. Because with CG Siegard's event this week, you should be receiving your second set of 10 if you're completely caught up on them, which means that you're going to have the opportunity to choose another unit in the game. So, massive disclaimer before I get into this. This is all my opinion. This is all a lot of rationale that I would use. This is how I would make the decision. Of course, everybody has to make the decision for themselves based on what they want or what they like or what's most important to them. So don't take this as legal counsel. This is me talking about what I think about when I am deciding about whether or not to use a unit of choice ticket on a unit. And when I'm thinking about it, I have 3 rules that I follow. The first rule is to never ever use a unit of choice ticket to pull for an item. Because I know it's super tempting to try to pull an Elfrida or to pull a Cloud for their TMRs for a double hand unit or whatever, or to pull for Cloud's STMR, if you've got 3 and you want that 4th one. In my opinion, it's not worth it to use a unit of choice ticket for an item, because no single item can provide more to your team than what a new 7-star kit could. The 7-star unit kits are just too powerful, they provide too much, and there may be some exceptions down the line, like I believe CG Axstar's STMR is extremely powerful, and it could be useful if that's what you need, is to just give a significant edge to his damage. But for most players at most stages, I would recommend against using a unit of choice ticket to pull an item, TMR or STMR otherwise. The second rule that I follow is to not pull for 6-star units, meaning that I will only pull for a 7-star unit, or I will only use my unit of choice ticket for a unit that I can 7-star. And this goes for pretty much any 6-star unit in the game. There is no 6-star unit that is worth pulling just a single 5-star base unit for. You want to be pulling for 7-star units. So either plan to use 2 sets of unit of choice tickets, or just pull for a unit that you already have a duplicate for. So don't pull for it. Like, I know CG Lid, for example, is really good, but even though she's probably the best 6-star unit in the game, her and Machina, like in their respective roles, they're still quite good. But don't use a unit of choice just to get them at their 6-star form. It is not worth it. And then the last rule that I always follow is to pull for what you want above anything else. If you want a unit, that's a good enough reason for you to get it. Honest to goodness. This game is a game for you to enjoy, to use the units that you love, the units that you feel passionate about, and all of the 7-star units have something to bring to the table. It may not be a ton, they may not be a meta-breaking unit, but if there's a 7-star unit that you want just because you love the unit or you love the sprite, go for it. It's, of course, the smartest and most efficient thing to pull for whatever unit will give your roster the biggest bump in power. But I keep saying it, this game is not that hard. You don't need the most meta units to clear content. You really don't. So pull what you want. So recap, don't pull for items. Pull for 7-star units. Don't pull a unit if you don't have a duplicate for it. And pull for the units that you want more than anything else. So then the question is, okay, well, I need a tank, I need a breaker, I need a healer, I need a buffer. You may have an assortment of things that you need to finish your 7-star roster. So the question is, who should you be using your unit of choice on? Who is the most important, role that you should be using your tickets for? And in my opinion, there's a simple breakdown. Your top 3 most important roles to fill in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. If you have these covered, content will be significantly easier for you. Any other roles outside of these are also important, but not nearly as important as filling these roles. So, this is the number 1 role that you should go for is breakers. Breakers have a larger impact on the game than any other unit or role available, just period. Breakers are without a doubt the most impactful units in the game, and it's because of the exponential benefit that you receive by having more powerful breaks. And I screenshot this from Reddit the other day because I was thinking about it and I couldn't remember the exact percentages. but the return that you get for increased break percentage is massive. And that's because the damage equation in the game is, it uses squares in it. It's a goodness, I've been out of math for like probably close to a decade now. But it gives so much more benefit. You get an exponential return for each linear increase in percentage break. So people would mistakenly think that, for example, oh, I'm going to do a 50% break to reduce my incoming damage by 50%. Wrong. It reduces your incoming damage by 75%. It decreases it even more for the stronger and stronger breaks that you have. So at 74%, which is what you get with Lauren 2B, as well as Auron, and yeah, I think that's about it for now. Or as well as Elephim. She can do 74% as well with her limit burst, I think. It's either 70, 74%. Either way, you can see this is a tremendous amount of damage reduction. So now if a boss would normally do 10,000 damage to one of your units, if you break them by 74%, which is going to be kind of, you know, one of the most common and reachable breaks, 74%, it's instead going to do less than 1,000 damage, which is amazing. So if you're struggling to keep your party alive, if you're struggling to clear content because the damage checks, you know, to survive the boss are too difficult, look into a breaker. Lauren is going to be in the pool forever. You can use unit of choice. She's even worth using 2 sets of unit of choice tickets if you don't have her, or CG Lid down the line, because she'll be able to fill the role as well. Absolutely worth it. The most impactful unit in the game. And as far as damage goes, if you do, so an unbroken enemy, you'll do however much damage. If you break them by 50%, your damage doubles. If you break them by 74%, your damage almost quadruples when compared to an unbroken enemy. So these breaks, they're important for survival, they're important for damage output, and they make the biggest difference. Now, of course, there are bosses that are immune to some or all kinds of breaks, and that's absolutely the case. But if a boss is immune to breaks, you're not going to need a breaker anyways. But for the bosses that are not immune to breaks, they're built in such a way that you need to break the boss. There are pretty much no fights that I can think of where like you can just roll in and be like, no, I don't need any breaks, I'll be fine, and you can just big wiener the fight. Like, you can't do that. Not for any fight that I'm aware of, and not at this time. But yeah, breakers, biggest impact. Lauren is probably my number 1 recommended, simply because she's currently in the pool and she will be in the pool forever and for always. 2B is just as strong. However, she's limited time, so if you pulled one of her, like I did, you may be fortunate enough to get a prism later if they bring the mixer system to the global version of the game, which they did in JP. It's a way that you could trade 100% TMR units for rare items and prisms, so that's definitely an option if you manage to get 1 2B, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, if you have Lid or Lauren, these are your 2 best options for permanently available breakers, and then Auron should be coming within the next couple of months as well for a competitor on equal footing with these breakers. Now, as far as which one do I think is best, my personal preference is Lauren because she has a multitude of chaining families. She imperils 3 different elements with her limit burst, and her sprite's to die for. She's amazing. Of course, I love 2B as well. Her sprite's incredible. I don't like Lid as much personally because I don't like that her LB only lasts for 2 turns instead of 3 like these 2. And I don't like that she doesn't imperil and she doesn't do a ton else with her kit. Like, she can't really do damage. She has an entrust, which is nice, but she usually needs to be using her own limit burst. So that's just my opinion. Breakers, number 1, the most important. If you're settling for 50% breaks and that's what you're using right now, absolutely upgrade. It's totally worth it. So that's the number 1. After that, I would say the next most important category is your psych, not tanks. It's damage dealers. And this may be a little bit controversial because I know that damage is, it's kind of a composite of what you can do with your own units combined with what you can do with your friend units. So, you know, there are certainly some fights where passing a damage check is not super important, or where pacing, you know, the damage you do in the fight doesn't really matter. Like, I think Venomous Vines is a good example. You don't have a schedule, you know, you just have to do a certain amount of damage in order to outpace the Queen's healing. Easy mode. But there are some fights, like Calcabrina, where you don't want to linger too long in that fight because the boss hurts like crazy. She hurts super bad. And so the idea is that you just want to one-shot everything. And for that, you want to have capable damage dealers. And of course, in this game, because, Gumi knows how to appeal to our vainness, to our hedonism. They're like, hey, people like the E-Pain, they want to get the highest damage and the highest attack possible. Let's throw sexy damage dealer units at them. And so people wind up pulling a bajillion of them that they don't actually need. So most people don't actually need to unit of choice a damage dealer, but if you're in the market for one, definitely consider one that is strong now and will continue to be strong down the road. I think Hyo is one of the most obvious options because he's super popular. He chains with several different families. He's quite easy to gear compared to many other units. He has many elemental options. And of course he has a lightsaber, so he's freaking cool. Cg Laswell I would actually put up as a top contender as well, because with his global exclusive buffs to his 7-star form, he actually can outdamage Hyo, which is amazing to me. And that's as a dual wield user. So if you're trying to choose, do I do a double hand damage dealer or a dual wield damage dealer, it's not as cut and dry as it used to be, or as it was in JP rather. In the JP version of the game, it was very cut and dry. Double hand damage dealers were strictly better than dual wield ones, or at least that's, kind of the idea that we got across. But with units like Adam Jensen that have come and gone, and units like Bath Time Laswell is what I'll call him, the Beach Time Laswell, who's permanently in the pool, we now have options for true dual wield equipment that actually make it so that it can be on par or even better than double hand with particular units, Laswell being one of them. So if you have some gear for true dual wield, go for someone like Laswell. He's a great physical damage dealer, excellent elemental imperils, elemental options, very easy to gear, innate dual wields. Like he's great. If you've managed to pull some true double hand stuff, you can go for someone like Hyo instead. And of course there are going to be other options down the line like Agstar, or if Xenogears comes, we could get C-Tan, who is an excellent physical damage dealer to my knowledge. So pick whichever one you like the most, because when it comes to physical damage, as long as they do the job, nothing else really matters. Magical damage dealers, if you're hurting for magic damage, I would personally hold off on using unit of choice tickets for them. And the reason is because while Transtera is very good and she can quad cast her Chaos Wave on turn 1 and her other Chaos chaining moves, and that's really, really good. Outside of that, I don't actually really like. I don't like using her. I'll straight up say it. I don't actually think she's that fun to use. I don't think she's that impressive. Circe's in a similar boat. Her problem is that she's mostly restricted to water damage. That's her best ability, anyways. She's one of the best mages in the game currently, though, so that's, it's something. But as far as using unit of choice for them, unless you super like them, I personally wouldn't. I would wait until down the line we have some better mage options. Golbez, the 5-star Golbez that was introduced in JP, in my opinion, he is a really good option because he gets strong chaining partners in the future, if I remember correctly. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe he can chain with like the new 5-star X-Death, he can chain with the new 5-star Soul. Very strong mages, and they put units like Transtera and Circe kind of in their place. So if you're hurting for a mage, my recommendation is to wait. Stick with Tornado Chaining, it does the job just fine. And yeah, you could also consider magical finishers or physical finishers as well, but in general, you're using unit of choice tickets to fill a role that you don't have filled or to help your party move up to the next level, and finishers don't typically do that as much as I like to use them. So even though I love Emperor and he's very strong, it's hard to recommend him as a unit of choice pick because his application is basically limited to single target fire chaining, or fire finishing rather. So yeah, if you're hurting for a mage, I would personally recommend to wait. But yeah, this is, I put damage dealers as number 2 simply because being able to like one-shot certain phases or fights or bosses is an important way to deal with difficult mechanics. I think it makes the game easier than some of the other things that you could add to your party. So with that, the third most important, in my opinion, is tanks. And that's because a strong tank kit will take your team a long ways. And we do have more than people think of to choose from. So Right now, the top 3 are certainly Merc Ramza, Gladiolus, and Wilhelm for your physical tanking. And then you have Awakened Rain and Mercenary Ramza again for magical tanking. Lilith as well. She's limited time though, so not as many people would have her. She's great for both physical and magical tanking. And we also have Beryl, who can do that as well. Bosch in the future is a very competent physical and magical cover tank as well. And we've also had others like Awakened Rain. We've had Demon Rain. White Knight Noel will probably make a return during the Christmas time. Yeah, we have lots of options. So, here's an example. If you're sitting on your units and you're like, well, I have an option for 7-star Gladio. Yeah, I know he's not as strong as Wilhelm, but he's stronger than Merc Ramza as far as a tank is concerned. And he can get the job done. He can solo tank any physical tank checks that are currently in the game. So if he can do the job for you, then that means you don't have to use a unit of choice ticket on a tank. Even if people are like, oh, he's not that good or he's not whatever. Ignore that. He can fill the role. He has stronger physical EHP than Merc Ramza, so get wrecked. And he's got similar to Wilhelm, not quite as high. So anyways, consider your options. Having that 7-star stat line attached to a tank kit is what makes them strong, and it's what allows you to just muscle your way past what could have otherwise been difficult damage checks. So that's my opinion on tanks. Find the one that you want. Find the one that fills the niche that you need, whether physical or magical tanking. One of the things to keep in mind when you're planning your UOCs is that an emerging strategy in the JP, as I mentioned in the 5K special video, is that a double Gladio strat is something that people are starting to use because you can fully cover 2 units instead of just covering one type of damage for all units. And it's making it so that people have an easier time passing tank checks because their party's not getting wrecked by AoE damage that can't be covered. So if you're trying to decide and you're like, well, I have 1 Gladio, but I have 1 Merc Ramza or 1 Gladio and 0 Wilhelms or whatever, like, just consider that. Otherwise, all of these provide physical cover. That's what you need them for. You want them for physical cover and 7-star stat line. Bosch will eventually get that stat line. We're just waiting for that. He'll certainly come eventually. So he's obviously an option for you. And if you're still using evade tanks, then you don't have to rush a physical tank. Maybe a magical tank is a better option. Yeah, but if you're limited, like if you only have 6-star tanks and you're like, well, I'm using a UOC to get a 7-star tank, and he's gonna be my main 7-star tank, I would recommend Bosch because he can cover both magic and physical damage. And for that reason, he's gonna be one of your flexible picks as soon as his 7-star form comes out. If you already have a Merc Ramza, same recommendation for the same reason, because he can cover both. So that's enough about tanks. They are, in my opinion, the 3rd most important role to fill in the party. After that, you basically have supports and healers. And in my opinion, supports come next, and then healers come after that. Because if you have all of those other priorities in order, like if you have the strong breakers, and if you have the strong damage dealers and the strong tanks, you may not even need a healer at all. Or you can get away with a low tier one, because people forget that Roselia, the 3-star unit, she has triple white magic and can heal quite a lot of damage, or can heal quite a lot of health in one turn. She's an option, and a lot of other options like that. Now, as far as supports go, if you're deciding like, well, okay, so I have my tanks, I have my damage, and I have my breaker set up, I want to do a support. In my opinion, there's nobody better than Zargaboth. I may acknowledge that I have a little bit of bias, but his limit burst is too strong. It's too strong. You can keep 100% uptime on 50% mitigation for your entire party. That's basic. That's better than Sieghardt's limit burst. That's almost as good as Wilhelm's limit burst. And to keep that up 100% of the time with 150% all stat buff, like, forget about it. Uraisha's banner will come and go, and I'm not even going to bat an eye at it because that limit burst by itself is so strong, and it's so worth facilitating because of the benefit you can get. However, if you don't have a Zargaboth, of course, Nickel can do the job for you. Of course. You can even get by with Soleil. You can get by with other supports. You can get by with Bards. Bards are just fine. I used Roy for a couple of videos, and I really liked using him. There's nothing wrong with using those units because they provide a similar benefit. The reason that Zargoboth stands out is because of that damage mitigation. So for that reason, if you're just upgrading from a unit that buffs stats to a 7-star unit that buffs stats and doesn't add anything unique, forget about it. Don't use your unit of choice on that. Go for a unit that gives you something unique. Zargoboth's 50% mitigation on his limit burst that you can keep up 100% of the time. Oh boy, that's unique and it makes me sweat. Like, it's so nice. And Uraisha is similarly good. Her limit burst does stronger buffs. And her limit burst also does, I think, a 3000 HP barrier on the whole party, which is also very, very good. So if you don't have a Zargoboth or you don't have many support options, Uraisha should be coming in the next month or two, I believe. So she's definitely an option. In my opinion, 50% mitigation 100% of the time is better than 3k barriers, 3k HP barriers. So, that's me. That's my decision made up, especially with all the other things that Zargoboth can do. But Uraisha is obviously a top contender as well. So that's my opinion on that. And then covering healers real quick, if I even have one out to look at. I don't think healers are that important in this game, at least for now, and that may change. But ultimately, if you have anybody who has Kiraja in their kit now or in the future, they're good enough. Re-Raise certainly has a lot of useful application, but like I said, if you have all this other stuff set up, like if you have your breakers, if you have your tanks, you have your good damage dealers, you may not actually need re-raise. I can't remember the last time I've used re-raise as part of my stats, but then again, I might come from a place of privilege where I have a lot of TMs and STMRs and stuff like that can help my team survive. But the point remains, re-raise, the fights are built in such a way that you don't have to have a particular thing. You do have to have some things, and if you have certain elements in your party, then you may be able to go without others. Re-raise is definitely good. Cgt Fina is really amazing because of her AoE re-raise on her limit burst, and at 7 stars she gets a cooldown skill that does AoE re-raise. She's great for that stuff. She's great for healing. But for now, I mean, if you have anybody who has Kiraja that they can dual cast with other useful things, or even if you have Aiko can heal almost 10,000 HP and fill the Esper bar in the same turn. You have options. So they're definitely last pick. You're going to see a bigger impact in your party performance if you go with a breaker first. Go with your damage dealer next if you're suffering in that category. Most people aren't. Most people have a good damage dealer. And then tanks from there. Those in my opinion, again, I said this at the start, reminding you again, this is all just my opinion. Tanks, damage dealers, and breakers. They're going to make the biggest difference for you. So, with that being said, maintenance has started. And I forgot about that, but that's okay, because I've covered everything. And yeah, with that said, who are you going to be using your unit of choice tickets on? I've still got my original 19, and on Friday I'll have my 20th one, and then I'll be getting another 10 this weekend with FanFesta, so I'll have 30 tickets, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with them, with all of them. I may be fortunate because I have most of the units I want or need, but you know, that helps me. But most people I know, they're looking for that unit that they really need. So, you know, create some rules for yourself. Really think about who's going to help you the most, and yeah, let me know who you plan on using your unit of choice tickets for. I'm really curious because I would love more insight from my viewers on what they plan on doing with those tickets, because they are so precious and they are so rare. So please let me know in the comments below, who are you going to use your unit of choice ticket on? And if you're going to FanFesta this weekend, I can't wait to see you there. Come say hi, come shake my hand, come hang out. We're going to have a great time. I'm looking forward to it so very much. And I will see everybody in the next one.